On this Friday night, the fatal wait in Uvalde.
It was a wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that.
Why desperate calls from inside the classroom went unanswered.
We're not giving up our guns.
While protesters demanding action on gun reform confront the NRA. Canadian killers get mercy from the courts. The Supreme Court ruling offering hope of release and how victim families are reacting. Shocking conditions for vulnerable youth.
So this is my prison.
An investigation of Ontario's child welfare system reveals major failures. And an epic musical reunion. After more than 4 decades apart, ABBA returns to the stage with a digital twist.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Chris Galis.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Uvalde police now admit wrong decisions were made while kids were being gunned down inside an elementary school. The 19 children and 2 teachers who were killed should have been celebrating their first day of summer vacation today. Instead, their families are planning funerals. The gunman that stormed into Robb Elementary on Tuesday barricaded himself inside a classroom full of children for nearly an hour. Many students were calling 911 while more than a dozen officers stood outside waiting for reinforcements.
19, like I said, there was 19 officers in there. In fact, there was plenty of officers to do whatever needed to be done. On retrospect, from where I'm sitting right now, clearly there was kids in the room.
Jackson Proskow joins us from Uvalde tonight. And Jackson, Texas police are supposed to be trained in active shooter situations. So what happened here?
Well, Chris, active shooter training means that police are supposed to keep firing on a suspect until the suspect is no longer a threat. Clearly, that did not happen here, all because of a simple mistake, a belief that anyone inside the school was already dead. Each new revelation makes the pain more unbearable. As this shattered town learns some of the 21 victims from Robb Elementary died as police stood by and refused to enter the classroom where they were ambushed.
And of course it was not the right decision. It was a wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that.
State investigators now believe the school district's chief of police made a fatal error in judgment, deciding not to breach the classroom door, even as children inside called 911, begging for help.
The on-scene commander considered it a barricaded subject and that there was time and there were no more children at risk. Obviously, based upon the information we have, there were children in that classroom that were at risk, and it was, in fact, still an active shooter situation.
Investigators can't explain why the school's armed resource officer wasn't there. They admit a teacher left a door to the outside propped open, allowing the gunman access to the school. As children repeatedly begged 911 operators to please send police now, 19 officers stood in the hallway outside the classroom. 19 children would later be pronounced dead. All while their parents were held back by police outside the school, pleading to be let in to rescue their children.
Forget how I'm doing. What about the parents of those children? Forget about me. Don't worry about me or officers and stuff like that. We take an oath to uphold the law and protect people.
In Uvalde's historic town square, there's a growing memorial and a growing sense of disbelief and outrage.
All of those kids that have crosses there, those are all my friends. They all died, and I just feel really bad because my friend, it broke my heart into a million pieces.
9-year-old Angela left school early that day, just moments before the shooting. Her mother can't understand why police didn't break down the classroom door.
I think they should have acted faster. The faster the better, because an hour was enough to kill a lot of kids.
I have no words because I don't know what he was thinking, said the mother of the 18-year-old gunman. I just want the innocent children who died to forgive me. Survivors, too, have been robbed of so much life. Gripped by nightmares and sadness, Angela says she's not sure if she can ever return to the place that took her friends.
I feel nervous now because since it all happened, I think it's going to happen again, and I don't know. I don't want to go. I'm scared.
Supporting survivors and victims' families is going to be a long and ongoing process. The state is working to cover travel costs and counseling costs, and local funeral homes say that the cost of any funerals for the victims will be completely covered. Chris?
All right, Jackson, accountability might help in this case. Given what we learned about police action and inaction today, what are Texas officials doing to find out what went wrong and make sure it doesn't happen again?
Well, after initially praising the police response, the governor of Texas now says he was completely misled. The deepest calls, though, for some sort of formal investigation into police actions are actually coming from Washington, where members of Congress are calling on both the FBI and the Department of Justice to probe exactly what happened and what went so terribly wrong.
All right, we'll see where it leads. That's Jackson Proskow in Uvalde tonight. Thank you, Jackson. A 5-hour drive from Uvalde in Houston, the National Rifle Association is holding its national convention despite calls for it to be canceled or postponed. Tens of thousands of gun advocates are there, and so is Heather Yourex-West for our coverage tonight. Heather.
An emotional group of people gathered in protest as the National Rifle Association opened its weekend convention here in downtown Houston. The National Lobby Group has not had a gathering this size since before the pandemic, but just days after a gunman took the lives of 19 children, the anger here is clear.
In the center of America's fourth largest city, the divide at the center of American life is laid bare.
I'm concerned about kids. I have a fourth grader, I have a second grader, and it's just trying to explain that or imagining these people's pain.
Across the street, 14 acres of guns, gear, and paraphernalia, the NRA's annual gathering, just days after Uvalde. A city park full of protesters made their frustration clear.
I'm a Christian, and as far as I know, what I see in Scripture tells me that I need to care about these children's lives, and no more children should be taken like this.
But on the other side of a police barricade, thousands of card-carrying members of the NRA congregation seem to pay little attention to the crowds.
With the socialists trying to take over our country, we're not giving up our guns.
Some of the weekend's musical acts, including Don McLean, canceled performances. Bad business, perhaps. But most of the weekend's events are proceeding. This show will go on.
People want to protest. It's their right to protest. But I'm here to support NRA, our gun rights, and to protect my family, my friends.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott was one of the headliners. He canceled his appearance late Thursday, opting to appear only by video. Donald Trump will be here, though, renewing his support for American gun laws in an interview with the Salem News Channel.
You have to give that Second Amendment great protection because without it, we would be a very dangerous country, frankly.
Ironically, Secret Service protocols around the former president mean no firearms are allowed in the NRA crowd here, making this one of the only places in Texas guns are banned.
The city's mayor said he didn't have the power to cancel this weekend's convention, but they did ramp up security significantly. Local, state, and federal resources are here to help keep all of those emotions from erupting into violence. Chris?
Heather Yourex-West in Houston for us tonight. Thank you, Heather. The 19 children killed in Uvalde were top of mind for families of Buffalo grocery store shooting victims, calling for change as they lay their loved ones to rest.
Before we could finish the funerals in Buffalo, you got 19 shot and killed with the same kind of weapons in Texas. And unless we start dealing with these easy access to guns, all of us are targeted.
Funerals for 3 of the 10 Buffalo victims were held today. Back in this country now, the Supreme Court of Canada struck down the punishment of life in prison without parole for mass murderers today. The ruling came during a review of the case of Alexandre Bissonnette, found guilty of killing 6 worshippers at a Quebec mosque in 2017. Tonight, Abigail Beeman tells us why the court finds his punishment unconstitutional.
As worshippers gathered at this Quebec City mosque for evening prayer in 2017, Alexandre Bissonnette opened fire, killing 6 people and wounding 5 more. Now he will have a chance at parole after 25 years. The Muslim community he attacked calls that a disappointment.
Deep concern is about the orphans that will see the murdering person in the road of Quebec City, 25 years after this tragedy.
A fear for victims, though the Supreme Court declaring parole eligibility after 50 years unconstitutional only guarantees inmates the ability to apply. Granting parole is up to the parole board.
The likelihood of such a person getting parole at 25 years is extremely rare.
The court's unanimous decision raises concerns about prisoners with no realistic chance of parole before they die, calling such sentences incompatible with human dignity, denying offenders any possibility of reintegration into society, a sentence so absurd that it would bring the administration of justice into disrepute. It strikes down a 2011 criminal code provision that allowed for longer periods.
The Supreme Court decision made clear that this provision of the criminal code was cruel and unusual, and inherently so.
It's not about them. It's really about us and who we are. We abolished the death penalty. We abolished corporal punishment.
There are few affected cases in Canada. Justin Burks is one, sentenced to a historic 75 years before a chance of parole after killing 3 Mounties in 2014.
I've been doing this for 45 years, and I cannot remember another decision that was this retroactive.
Sentencing can now move ahead for Alec Manassian, convicted of murdering 10 people in the 2018 Toronto van attack. Ontario's Superior Court waiting on this legal benchmark first. Abigail Beeman, Global News, Ottawa.
Just ahead, shedding light on a broken system. What a Global News investigation reveals about living conditions for some of Ontario's most vulnerable youth. A year-long investigation by Global News and APTN examining the state of the child welfare system in Ontario has uncovered some deeply disturbing conditions for some of the province's most vulnerable youth. Children going hungry and repeatedly physically restrained by staff. As Carolyn Jarvis reports, the province promises to overhaul the system, but some wonder if it'll go far enough.
Jessica Fowler was bounced through foster care and group homes 15 times.
I had to go through this just because I didn't have parents. It's not normal. Yeah, it's just not normal.
The most violent, she says, was a group home she arrived at in 2017, where she said she was repeatedly physically restrained for things as simple as making toast at the wrong time.
They went to put me in this restraint, and they pushed my face into my mattress, and I couldn't breathe at all. I was trying to scream, and I couldn't say anything.
Using the Freedom of Information Law, Global News and APTN were able to uncover which group homes and foster care homes are submitting the most serious occurrence reports in Ontario. Reports which include deaths, injuries, missing kids, and restraints. Restraints are permitted by the government only when children pose an immediate risk to themselves or others.
So this is my prison.
The home Jessica went to was run by a company called Mary Homes, which today operates 5 group homes in the Ottawa area.
It was pretty scary.
Delana Land was there at the same time, 2,000 kilometers from her First Nation in Northern Ontario.
There was nails in the windows because we weren't allowed to leave the rooms.
Mary Homes, which declined our request for an interview, had the 3rd highest number of serious occurrence reports per bed in the province.
We have a whole group of kids who may or may not be safe.
Experts say the volume of serious occurrence reports may be an indication that staff lack basic training.
We have frontline workers where the minimum qualification is that they have a driver's license and perhaps a high school diploma.
Starting next summer, the province will require frontline workers have a post-secondary education or experience deemed relevant. But it stops short of requiring that training be specifically in child and youth care.
It's a system that doesn't really focus on the dignity and the care and the well-being of young people.
The Ontario government says it's undertaking a redesign of its child welfare system, a promise that's been made many times before.
It breaks my heart that my bed was basically replaced with another kid who's in the same situation that I was in.
Carolyn Jarvis, Global News, Toronto.
And you can watch Global's expanded coverage of our investigation into Ontario's child welfare system on the new reality Saturday at 8 p.m. Just ahead, a residential school survivor opens up for the first time about the abuse that nearly broke her and how she recovered. Exactly 1 year ago today, the world learned 215 suspected unmarked graves, believed to be mostly children, had been found on the grounds of the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. That announcement sparked a national reckoning about the residential school system in Canada, but for survivors, it meant reawakening trauma. Tonight, one of those survivors is sharing details of her story even members of her family haven't heard. Neetu Garcha reports.
Shirley Paul says attending the memorial marking a year since the detection of unmarked graves on these grounds helped her heal. She hugged the Prime Minister. And in the days since, now back in her BC home about an hour and a half away, she's opening up about the darkest chapters of her life for the first time.
I kept it hidden inside of me. I didn't want to talk about it.
Shirley says it felt like an eternity, but she remembers spending at least 5 years in the former Kamloops Indian Residential School in the early 1950s.
When we got there, first thing they did, the sisters did, was take all your clothes off and stick you in a tub. I swear they put me in a bleach because that water burned.
She says she didn't know what starvation was until she came here.
And you're so hungry. We were eating potato peeling, and we got caught. The sister came in and took us out of there, and we got us strapping. When I got sick, they put me to bed, and they didn't feed me.
Punishment carried out by teachers and nuns was relentless.
Then you get a strapping. You're not allowed to speak your language. They tried to beat the language out of us.
It's definitely an eye-opener. I haven't heard the stories come forth from her.
I just can't believe that she showed us love and cared for us when she never had it. And that makes her one of the most strongest people I know.
Shirley went on to become a teacher herself, developing and implementing a program focused on her traditional Okanagan language.
That was the most happiest moment of my life, to have this certificate.
Finally breaking her silence, showing how the institution failed to break her. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Silk Okanagan Territory.
And a reminder, there is support available for survivors of residential schools and their families. The number is toll-free 24 hours a day. It's 1-800-721-0066. Music from the past in a performance that seems like it's from the future. Swedish supergroup ABBA beaming back on a new digital stage. Thousands of ABBA fans are buzzing after watching the Swedish supergroup perform some of its biggest hits, looking exactly like it did when they split up 40 years ago. Crystal Gumansing shows us why this was no ordinary concert, with the band beaming itself back to life.
The music, the makeup, the mood. ABBA is back. Having called on the world to again take a chance on them, ABBA kicked off a world-first concert-going experience in London.
Absolutely
fantastic. If I died tonight, I'd die happy.
Brilliant. It was unbelievable. It was extraordinary.
The arena here in East London was specially created for ABBA Voyage. It's an immersive experience with seating around a dance floor, huge screens, and a live band. And the avatars, unlike this rudimentary likeness we whipped up, were painstakingly created over years.
We spent 5.5 years in this, and we're all in our 70s. I don't think we'll do another one.
So no more to come?
I think not. I'd say definitely no, but never say never. But
maybe
it's a no.
If we have a second life.
Yeah.
The avatars go on living, you know.
Yeah.
The avatars portray the band members in their youthful primes. The real group performed over 5 weeks wearing motion capture suits. At times, younger dancers were brought in to pull off some of the moves. But the result? A concert like no other.
Oh my goodness, it was so good. It was like I was beamed up in a spaceship branded by ABBA. I danced, I jived, I had the time of my life. It was like, it ticked all the boxes.
Speaking of boxes, much like IKEA furniture, ABBA Voyage can be packed and reassembled anywhere in the world. Maybe it's a Swedish thing. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
And that is Global National for this Friday night. I am the real Chris Galis. Tonight's Your Canada is the fog rolling into the harbor in St. John's, Newfoundland. Thanks very much for watching. We'll hope to see you again here tomorrow. Have a great weekend.